Hello everyone, first news update for 30th of April. Now it's 10:30 in the morning Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully you will find this episode informative and interesting. And if so, dear friends, please don't forget to click that like button and leave some commentary on both platforms, YouTube and Rumble. That might help to deal with the algorithm and reach wider audience, and it will be even bigger help if you are watching this video on YouTube, and if you will switch to my Rumble channel for next 35 minutes and will watch this episode on Rumble. And after that, I mean, you can check out yesterday's episode of Evening News that is packed with the latest reports on some major developments. I'm quite sure you will find it informative and interesting. That's been said, dear friends. I can just remind you that from Monday to Friday, I have a new program on Rumble. It's a live stream, evening news from Moscow, and I really hope more members of our communities will join live streams at 7 o'clock in the evening Moscow time, or if they have no such opportunity at that exact time, then we'll watch those videos, those programs later on. Anyways, let's go through some news, dear friends. Well, RT is reporting that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that Putin's Victory Day ceasefire offer opens possible direct talks with Kiev. Russia considers President Vladimir Putin's declared 72-hour Victory Day ceasefire in the Ukraine conflict as the start of direct negotiations with Kiev without preconditions. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has stated interesting statement that might generate some confusion here in Russia among public and worldwide, and even more confusion can be caused by this another statement from Russian official, this time from press spokesman of the Russian President Dmitry Peskov, that Russia is ready to overlook Zelensky's illegitimacy. So the issue of whether Vladimir Zelensky is the legitimate ruler of Ukraine remains a secondary concern for Russia, which is more interested in resuming direct negotiations with the Kiev. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told the reporters yesterday, and he also stated that at least for that particular moment, there was no response from Kiev about Russia's ceasefire offer on a Victory Day. And well, as I said, dear friends, lately number of Russian officials are making statements that are directed towards demonstration of Russian openness, as far as I understand, towards the escalation, towards talks with the Kiev regime or whomever, if that will help de-escalate the situation. But same time, I can understand that these kind of statements that Russia is ready to overlook Zelensky's illegitimacy can cause some confusion among public here in Russia and worldwide, and it does create some sort of confusion, I guess, among officials also, because, for example, yesterday, Zelensky threatened Russia and Moscow in particular with the terrorist attacks on during the Victory Day celebrations, and Maria Zakharova responded on that. Let's go through this news here. Vladimir Zelensky and his extremist gang are undermining peace efforts, said Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova. This is how diplomat commented on Zelensky's threats about Russia's pain points, so-called pain points, and the fact that Moscow is allegedly rightly worried about their parade for the 80th anniversary of victory. And Zakharova's quote here: "What kind of truth can we talk about with the Kiev regime when Bankova is literally planning terrorist attacks live on air?" And she's correct. Bankova, by the way, is a street in Kiev where official institutions are located, state institutions, including administration of their president. And this is a legit question that Zakharova is asking. What kind of truth can we talk about with the Kiev regime when head of that regime, Zelensky, is openly on air, by the way, is threatening Russia with terrorist attacks, threatening Moscow with terrorist attacks on victory during the Victory Day celebrations. for example, which means basically direct threats towards thousands and thousands of people, right? Guests of the capital from all over the world, and also locals. That's what Zelensky's statement that he made yesterday means. And well, maybe it will make more sense if Zakharova will ask this absolutely legit question to Sergei Lavrov, her boss, or to press spokesman of the Russian president, Dmitry Peskov, or the Russian president, if she has access to him. What kind of truth we are talking about with these terrorists that are openly threatening to kill thousands of our fellow citizens and the guests of the Russia during the victory celebration? Because obviously terrorist attacks on Moscow, on central parts of Moscow, will potentially might cause thousands and thousands of casualties, because you can imagine millions of people gonna be in the central parts of Moscow on 9th of May to celebrate her victory day, right? It's not just parade, military parade that will take place, but there are concerts all over there, Moscow, and people are celebrating. It's a great celebration, by the way. And any attack on Moscow on that day can cause a tremendous level of casualties, right? And I can understand why some people might be confused, even officials, that Russian leadership is offering talks with those terrorists that are threatening Russia with the terrorist attacks openly on air. I don't know. I'm confused also, dear friends, because I mean, with how you can talk to Zelensky and other terrorists in Kiev that are backed by globalists and globalist puppet regimes in the West. I mean, I don't know. Bit confusion there. Share your opinion, dear friends, what you make of all these developments, but some confusing times for sure. Meanwhile, and dear friends, after Zelensky's yesterday's threats, Moscow may actually make some corrections in its stance, potentially, because I mean, yet again, it will be, society would not understand. Society will struggle to understand how Moscow is offering and why Moscow is offering talks with Zelensky and his criminal associates, while they are threatening to kill thousands of us, and they are threatening to do so openly. I mean, openly, without any shame. So therefore, today Peskov might make some different statements than yesterday. Let's see. Meanwhile, this information may kind of explain recent statements of Russian leadership that is clearly focused on demonstrating Russian openness to de-escalation and to peace talks. For example, RT is reporting that Bloomberg, Western propaganda outlet, reported that Trump's special invoice, Steve Witkoff, sought to convince Putin on the terms of a ceasefire that Washington is offering. So U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff sought to convince Russian President Vladimir Putin to agree on a ceasefire last week that would halt fighting in the Ukraine conflict along the current front lines. Bloomberg has reported, citing sources. And, well, yet again, Bloomberg is obviously propaganda outlet, first of all, as any other Western so-called media outlet is. And therefore, we should take this information with a pinch of salt. But time to time, this Western MSM does report something correctly. And if this information is true, then this might explain, obviously, latest statements of Russian leadership in terms of ceasefire negotiations and so on. But a question is how correct this report is if Bloomberg is claiming that Russian president agreed to hold their fire on the current line of contact. because if I remember correctly, it was Russian President exactly, Vladimir Putin, who in 2024, during his meeting with the leadership of Foreign Ministry of the Russian Federation, outlined very clearly and directly what is their conditions based on which Russia might consider a long-term ceasefire. And first of all, Russian president was talking about withdrawal of Kiev regime's forces from Kherson region, Zaporozhye region, DPR and LPR. That will create good enough ground for meaningful talks to then take place. So yet again, confusing news is coming in that Russian president now agrees to halt fire on the current line of contact. I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. I have some doubts that Putin will agree on that, or maybe same time he agree on that because Witkov said that Zelensky will withdraw Kiev region's forces from parts of Kherson, Zaporozhye, DPR and LPR where these forces are presented. In that case, I can understand why would Putin agree on long-term ceasefire on the line of contact. Maybe that is the case, but yet again, more and more news is coming in that are creating more questions and more confusion than giving us any answers. Meanwhile, TASS news agency is reporting that head of State Department of US, Marco Rubio, stated that US will give up mediation function without progress on Ukraine. US administration intends to abandon its role as a mediator if there is no progress in their peaceful settlement in Ukraine. This was announced at the briefing by the head of the State Department press service, Tammy Bruce, quoting Secretary of the State Marco Rubio. And first of all, let's be clear that US is not mediator. US is a party of this conflict. And US was leading the charge in this proxy war against Russia for a while and still is actively involved in this proxy war. One should keep in mind that weapons, munition is still flowing to Kiev regime, Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky from US, and US still continues to share intelligence with their Kiev regime, intelligence data, which allows Kiev regime to conduct long-range strikes, for example, deep into Russian territory that kills many civilians, right? So US is not a mediator in no ways and cannot be considered as such. And I find it difficult to understand why Russian leadership is not pointing out that US is not a mediator but a party of the conflict. I mean, this clarity is clearly needed, isn't it? But for whatever reason, I have not see, hear, or read any statements of high-ranking Russian officials that will highlight, at least since the inauguration of Trump, that highlights that US is not a mediator but a party of this proxy war that is waged against Russia. And when it comes to this particular statement that US will walk away, I don't think this is true. Unfortunately, lately we have more and more indicators that globalists and their assets inside US or outside did actually manage to strengthen their grip on the current administration of US, and therefore I think it is more realistic to expect that in next couple of weeks statements from US gonna become more and more hostile towards Russia, and soon after we will see most likely next phase of escalation that Western ruling class will initiate in this proxy war against Russia, and maybe even next several phases. We will witness next several phases of escalation before Western ruling class will finally come to the terms that they lost this proxy war and would really agree on the escalation. In my personal understanding or reading of the big picture, sooner, most likely, we will face next phase of escalation. And on topic of escalation, by the way, we have also Peskov statements. Spokesman of the Russian president once again highlighted that European capitals, number of European capitals, first of all, of course, London, Paris, and Berlin, are focused on continuing the war, which is true, actually. And one may argue one additional indicator that before the escalation, we will see next one or even several phases of escalation. RIA Novosti is also reporting that several European leaders have cancelled their trip to Kiev on May 9th. As you know, dear friends, Zelensky recently came up with initiative to organize some alternative event to counter Russian Victory Day celebration, and he was inviting all the leaders from collective West, but seems like those people have something else to do. So this attempt of Zelensky is failing. European leaders such as the French president, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, and Poland are the likely future Chancellor of Germany have decided not to travel to Kiev on May 9th. Political rights, and this is quite understandable, by the way, because it would make little sense if these Nazi sympathizers, leadership of UK, France, Germany, and Poles, will travel to Kiev on May 9th to celebrate victory over Nazi Germany. I mean, it will make little to no sense whatsoever, right? Because Nazi ideology is the ideology that clearly unites modern Europe, as it did during the Second World War. And don't tell me otherwise, by the way. What decent human being would ever sympathize or support financially or militarily Nazis and the fascists? And exactly this is happening, isn't it? Europe, majority of European elites are diehard supporters of this Nazi and the fascist regime of Zelensky. Am I correct? So therefore, I'm not at all surprised that these so-called elites of Europe refuse to go to Kiev on May 9th to celebrate defeat of Nazism. Makes sense. Vzglyad newspaper, meanwhile, is reporting that Houthis claim that U.S. aircraft carrier Harry Truman was hit. This is not the first claim of such kind from Ansar Allah movement. And who knows, by the way, maybe this is true, maybe not, but what we know for sure, and this information was acknowledged officially, as far as I can tell, that USS Harry Truman actually lost her FA-18 fighter jet that, according to report, failed into sea from the board of the ship because aircraft carrier was making some stiff maneuvers to avoid incoming missiles or drones that were launched by Ansar Allah movement. And that's official explanation that we hear, isn't it? But in reality, who knows, maybe some of the drones actually hit deck of the aircraft carrier and their FA-18 caught fire and staff just pushed it away and dropped it in the sea to make sure that, carrier not gonna experience additional damage as a result of explosion of the munition or their fuel and so on. So difficult to know, but I'm not gonna be surprised at all if this information is correct and Harry Truman was actually hit. Vzglyad News aircraft carrier of US. Vzglyad newspaper is also reporting that India's defense ministry said it will receive 26 Rafale Marines from France by 2030. I reported day before yesterday, I believe that was during their evening news live stream on Rumble about contract that New Delhi was about to sign with France, contract that worth $7.4 billion for deliveries of the 26 Rafale M planes. And this contract was signed, and I guess these planes soon will start replacing aging fleet of carrier-based MiG-29s of India. And well, of course, this addition will significantly increase offensive and also defensive capabilities of India's militaries, Indian militaries. And well, even though I would prefer, obviously, Indian aircraft carriers to operate with their Russian carrier-based planes, but well, as far as I know, I could be mistaken on that, but as far as I know, latest variation of MiG-29, which is a MiG-35, by the way, updated, significantly updated plane. I'm not sure MiG-35 has a carrier-based model, and therefore, if India was looking for a relatively small plane, small, light, and a capable plane, then well, Rafale is the one to look at it, because Rafales are, you know, comparably small planes. You know, they're somewhat similar to MiG-29, maybe smaller even, but quite capable. And seems like power to weight ratio is good enough on these planes, on Rafales, to take off from trampolines, because Indian aircraft carriers have a trampoline, while on French aircraft carrier, nuclear aircraft carrier Charles de Gaulle, Rafale planes are taking off with the assistance of a steamroller. That is right. There is different systems of takeoff. So anyways, interesting news, and I'm quite sure China and Pakistan not going to be happy about this news, but it is a significant addition when it comes to battle capabilities of Indian Navy, that's for sure. TASS news agency is also reporting that Lavrov catapult, by the way, that's what is the name, on French nuclear carrier Charles de Gaulle, these planes are taking off with assistance of catapult, right? But India has aircraft carriers, two aircraft carriers where trampoline system is deployed, and their planes have to have a good thrust to weight ratio to manage to take off from trampolines, and Rafales, I guess, are good enough in that. Anyways, let's continue. TASS news agency is reporting that Lavrov said that BRICS expansion process will soon continue, which is interesting. Dozens of countries are tuning in, by the way, to join BRICS. Many countries become partner states of the BRICS, and any positive developments when it comes to BRICS is good for the whole world, I believe, because BRICS clearly is a foundational stone for emerging multipolar world. The TASS news agency is also reporting that dollar's share in trade payments among BRICS countries down to 1/3, which is quite an achievement, really. One may argue trade between BRICS member states are done mainly in national currencies, and this process is clearly unstoppable, even if it will take some years before BRICS will come up with alternative financial and banking system, and probably that's exactly what's going to happen. Even if it will take more time before BRICS will come up with their alternative world reserve currency, process of de-dollarization in a trade between BRICS member states is clearly intensifying. And just take a look at the numbers, by the way. I mean, only 1/3 of trade between the BRICS member states, and we are talking about big economies, by the way, are done now in a dollar, and this number will shrink more and more as time goes by, for sure. And dear friends, this is it for now. relatively short update, which is good. I'm short on time today, so I was hoping that this update will be shorter. Hopefully you will find it informative, interesting, and useful, and if so, please click that like button if you have not yet, and leave some commentary. Share video with your friends or information about the existence of my channel. That might also help to reach wider audience. And if you like my work, dear friends, if you like my channels, and if you want to support, you can do it with donation through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You can also donate to the project during the live streams on Rumble, or become a premium subscriber on Rumble. And also crypto, by the way. All the links and addresses are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. I hope you will manage to join today's live stream at 7 o'clock Moscow time on Rumble. And so yes, bye for now. Have a wonderful day.